The first of the month brings a very specific psychological reset to millions of homes. The paycheck clears, the bank balance briefly peaks, and for a few hours you feel a reassuring sense of control. You map out the math. Rent immediately claims 30% of the total. Groceries require another 20%. You siphon a small fraction into savings, and the thin margin left over is supposed to cover everything else, including the actual joy of living. But this financial ecosystem is incredibly fragile. It relies on a dangerous assumption that the world outside your window will remain perfectly stable. Every single piece of this budget depends on the cost of living staying exactly where it was last month. That careful planning is the baseline reality for the middle class. You balance the books, assuming your internal math is enough to keep the external chaos away. Then, a distant geopolitical conflict, say escalating tensions in Iran, dominates the evening news cycle. The global supply chain shudders. Almost instantly, that macro-political shockwave travels thousands of miles and lands directly on a basic household utility, the cooking gas cylinder. The price spikes overnight. Immediately, the meticulously planned ledger from the first of the month breaks. The margin of error vanishes, replaced by a sudden vacuum in the family budget. A political headline drafted in a different time zone has crashed right through the front door, leaving parents sitting at the kitchen table asking one desperate question: where do we cut? A single gas price hike triggers systemic failure. Rising fuel prices inflate transport. Moving cargo costs significantly more. Companies pass these elevated costs to distributors, then directly to you. You're now paying an invisible, compounding premium on absolutely every item at checkout. This inflation multiplier takes a localized utility hike and metastasizes it into a severe, unavoidable household crisis. And the demographic absorbing the heaviest blow from this multiplier is the middle class. They fall into a very specific economic bind. They sit squarely in the trap. They earn too much to qualify for protective government subsidies and rations, but they lack the accumulated wealth to simply ignore the rising costs of living. There is no financial escape route. The trap doesn't close all at once. It works through a slow, insidious erosion. A tiny compromise on Tuesday, a delayed purchase on Thursday, and constant, exhausting mental calculation. Over months, those compounded micro-adjustments quietly strip away the comforts of living, pushing the family entirely into survival mode. The reality of this math plays out late at night. Parents sit in quiet rooms, whispering over screens and notepads, trying to absorb the inflation shock without alarming the rest of the house. The sacrifices are specific and quietly painful. You drop the trusted grocery brands for cheaper alternatives. You look at the calendar and decide to permanently cancel the monthly family dinner out. Soon, the collateral damage reaches the kids. The art class gets paused. The new cleats wait until next season. Children absorb this ambient financial anxiety. They sense the tension in the room, even if they don't understand the balance sheet. When money tightens, life choices shrink. This economic squeeze operates as an invisible, heavy tax on a family's overall happiness. The geopolitical shifts on the evening news have a direct physical destination. Every international conflict and trade embargo eventually manifests as a line item in your personal budget. You cannot stop international conflicts. You cannot negotiate trade deals. But you can reclaim your power by understanding exactly how these forces operate, enforcing strict financial awareness, and adapting your budget before the shock arrives. Because the journey of these commodities is brutally direct. It starts on massive ocean tankers navigating international waters, moves relentlessly across your national highways via commercial freight lines, and lands directly in the daily prices at your local crowded market. Wherever the world decides to change, the economic impact will inevitably reach your front door. Imagine a typical family budget mapped out on the kitchen table. When the cost of a cooking gas cylinder suddenly jumps by 200 rupees, the math breaks. That missing money comes from somewhere, maybe a slight downgrade in groceries or a dip into monthly savings. The immediate reaction is almost always local. We look at domestic inflation, or we blame government taxes for squeezing the middle class. But the math actually starts far beyond India's borders. This graph compares India's total LPG consumption against what it pulls from its own ground. Notice the massive gap here. India has to import roughly 60 to 65% of the cooking gas it uses every single day. That massive deficit means the local supply is entirely dependent on the outside world. Any physical disruption to the ships moving that fuel across the globe translates directly into a localized shortage. To figure out why your household budget is shrinking, you have to stop looking at domestic policy and trace the physical journey of that fuel backward across the ocean. The journey ends at facilities like this import terminal in Haldia. Millions of tons of pressurized gas arrive here, offloaded into domestic trucks. Before it reaches those trucks, it spends days crossing the Arabian Sea inside specialized tankers, engineered to keep volatile gas stable over thousands of miles. Tracing those ships back to their origin point reveals a severe geographic bottleneck. Looking at a map of the Middle East and zooming in here, between Oman and Iran, we find the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest point, this waterway is only 21 miles wide. Despite its size, the volume of energy forced through this channel is staggering. Roughly 20% of the world's total oil supply passes through these waters. For India specifically, the reliance is extreme. Nearly 90% of all Indian LPG imports flow through this exact tight squeeze. The energy security and household budgets of over 1 billion people rest entirely on safe passage through this single, narrow strip of water. The region surrounding that strait is the undisputed energy hub of the globe, but it is deeply susceptible to geopolitical fractures. In 2026, those fractures opened up. Escalating military actions between Iran and the United States turned the surrounding waters into an active hazard zone. Opposing naval forces and asymmetric patrol boats established a high-risk military standoff directly inside the commercial shipping lanes. This chart maps the immediate economic fallout. When military hardware enters a shipping lane, maritime insurance premiums skyrocket to cover the potential loss. To avoid these massive fees and the physical danger, logistics companies either halt their fleets entirely or force them to take long, expensive detours. With ships parked or rerouted, the volume of LPG leaving the Middle East drops rapidly. But the millions of kitchens relying on that fuel still need to cook. With global demand remaining identical against a suddenly restricted supply, the market price naturally surges. The geopolitical standoff adds a massive invisible premium to the fuel, long before a single drop of it ever reaches Indian territory. When that artificially expensive gas finally clears the ports and gets packaged into the familiar red domestic cylinders, the math has to balance out. The oil companies cannot absorb the loss forever, so the inflated import costs are handed directly down to the end consumer. That is the exact mechanism causing the price to jump by 200 rupees at your door. This diagram shows the ripple effect. Freight and agricultural transport rely on imported fuel. When energy base costs rise, moving products becomes more expensive. This transport markup is baked into everyday goods. Households pay a premium to cook and a separate markup for ingredients. A military conflict off the coast of Iran disrupts ships in the Strait of Hormuz. That disruption cuts the fuel supply, which spikes the import cost, which ultimately forces an Indian family to stretch their monthly budget. The next time the price of a gas cylinder goes up, look past local inflation. That higher price tag is a receipt proving your kitchen is firmly wired into the volatile mechanics of global geopolitics.